I don't carry any weapons. I am just being the voice of millions of voiceless people in Iran who say no to Islamic Republic.
Reporting a story is one thing, but becoming the story is quite another. Across the globe, the line between journalism and activism is often written in blood and iron.
Reza Valizadeh, a U.S. Iranian citizen and longtime critic of Iran, was arrested by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps back in September of 2024.
Most people think a bad day at work ends with a termination letter. However, for these journalists in Iran, it ended in 544 days of solitary confinement and life sentences. Discover how these journalists risked everything to speak truth to power and paid a price that shocked the entire world. Sarvanaz Ahmadi. Sarvanaz Ahmadi is a figure representing the intellectual opposition against the modern Iranian regime, while the authorities considered her a potential threat to national security. For many underprivileged citizens, Ahmadi was an experienced social worker advocating for children's rights. Contrasting the butchers who destroyed morale by instilling fear in people's hearts, Ahmadi attempted to restore societal bonds through social activism. Ahmadi chose the path of social engagement and responsibility. She held a master's degree in social work and provided services to the poorest children of Tehran and its trade unions. In addition, Ahmadi was a journalist and translator who presented the world's feminist theories in Iran, publishing texts that discussed the relationship between labor and politics. The 2022 Woman, Life, Freedom movement became the turning point of her life when she participated in documenting the uprising and was detained along with her husband, Kamyar Fakour. Ahmadi turned her jail cell into a fortress of defiance inside Evin prison. While her translations were censored, she authored open letters addressing the inhuman conditions and the plight of Afghan refugees. She suffered health problems during her incarceration, which led to her developing epilepsy from the stress. During a drastic form of protest in December 2024, Ahmadi conducted a medication strike by withholding her medications to fight for her rights and medical leave. For Ahmadi, being behind bars does not signify defeat, but rather the cultivation of a revolutionary seed. After 19 months of medical deprivation and frequent convulsions, she was released on a conditional basis in December 2024. In the eyes of the government, she is a convicted felon. However, she continues to be a passionate human rights defender, illustrating that the pen is a weapon against any tyrant. Before we continue, here's an interesting topic to consider. Rumors are circulating about this incident, but no credible news sources have confirmed it, so it shouldn't be treated as fact. An image allegedly showed a news anchor in Iran appearing in inappropriate dress, and the footage was reportedly taken down immediately. It remains unclear how much of this information is true. What's your take? Let us know in the comments below. Jason Rezaian. Jason Rezaian was known internationally because of the 544-day ordeal that he had to suffer while in Iran's revolutionary judicial process. As a reporter for The Washington Post in its Tehran bureau, Jason Rezaian was a dual national who suffered the brunt of international politics, eventually becoming one of the most notable political prisoners of the modern era. He was born in California to Iranian and American parents. Jason Rezaian decided to move to Iran in 2009 in an attempt to create harmony by documenting the events of his everyday life. This made him a subject for hardliners due to his in-between state. On July 22, 2014, Rezaian and his wife, Yeganeh Salehi, were arrested at their home. He was kept in solitary confinement in Evin prison, without legal representation. The charges of espionage were seen as a joke in the judicial process. To his captors, he was just a pawn to be used in nuclear talks with America. In Evin prison, Rezaian endured psychological stress in the form of incessant interrogation and sleep deprivation. The closed trial conducted in 2015, in which Judge Abulgasem Salavati presided over him, concluded with his conviction, stripping him of the opportunity to defend himself in court. In the end, he was condemned not in a courtroom, but through a political decision made behind closed doors. On January 16, 2016, at the time when the nuclear agreement was put into practice in Iran, Rezaian was released during a prisoner exchange. In this manner, Rezaian became an icon representing the plight of journalists working in oppressive nations. Reza Valizadeh. Valizadeh is an Iranian-American journalist. He exemplifies the modern dangers that confront individuals who venture back into their country through deceptive promises of security. In contrast to the ideologists of old, Valizadeh was victimized at the hands of the state through its exploitation of dual nationals as a means of geopolitical advantage. A former journalist for Radio Farda and Voice of America, Valizadeh came back to Iran in March of 2024 to reunite with his aging parents, having been promised his security in advance by the highest authorities. The bridge home ended up being a death trap. By September of 2024, Reza had been captured by the IRGC and imprisoned in one of Evan's maximum security sections. Held in solitary confinement and constantly interrogated, Valizadeh was accused of collaborating with a hostile government, a charge often leveled against journalists. In Evan, the health condition of Valizadeh has declined drastically. He has an acute asthmatic condition, and due to neglect of his health inside the overcrowded Ward 8 of the prison, he has conducted a hunger strike due to his frustration about the mock trial. The mock trial was led by the well-known judge Iman Afshari and took less than 40 minutes. The 10-year sentence that Valizadeh received serves as a reminder of his importance as a pawn to the diplomatic game. Currently, Valizadeh stands as a wrongful detainee. Even with his limited interaction with others, he has been successful in sending audio clips through his cell phone despite its confiscation. He criticizes the state on censoring news through these clips sent from his cell. Yalda Moayeri. The famous photojournalist Yalda Moayeri has used her skills in photography to expose the oppressive state policy of keeping people mute. The renowned chronicler of revolt is known for turning average individuals into heroes of the movement Woman, Life, Freedom. Her experience has grown from documenting the horrors in Afghanistan and Iraq. However, what she has feared the most has happened closer to home. In 2017, she took one of her most famous photos showing a woman standing surrounded by tear gas in Tehran University, an image that showed the true spirit of Iran to the rest of the world but cost her time in prison. She was arrested during the 2022 Mahsa Amini riots on Hijab Street. Before being sent to Karchak prison, she made her last post, warning the system that her life was its responsibility. Internally, Moayeri continued to act like a documentary filmmaker. After her release, Moayeri embarked on a journey to record the experiences of 30 other women inmates in order to ensure that their voices survived the prison walls. This effort won her the 2023 IWMF Courage in Journalism Award. However, it marked her for life because, in February 2026, the IRGC broke into her home and confiscated all her cameras again. To Moayeri, journalism is like being a physician who diagnoses societal sickness and works towards helping heal society. Moayeri is well known for the belief that her work belongs to the Iranian people, not to be used as propaganda by foreign governments against the Iranian government. Today, Moayeri continues to act as a beacon for hope, the watchful eye that sees even in darkness, showing that one picture is scarier than 1,000 words. Vida Rabbani. Vida Rabbani embodies the enduring spirit of the reformist media that has been subjected to systematic repression. Rabbani's fight has become one of intellectual tenacity against a judicial system that sees investigative journalism as a declaration of war. As a reporter for news organizations such as Sharg, Rabbani felt that the solution to her broken society was one of absolute openness. Rabbani's journey began after the 2009 Green Movement uprising. From the outset, Rabbani demonstrated exemplary ability in working within and around increasingly strict red lines by challenging the moral grounds of institutions that demanded unquestioned allegiance. For her, this resulted in a pattern of arrests. The first occurred in 2020 following the shooting down of Flight PS752, and again when participating in the 2022 Woman Life Freedom demonstrations. Ultimately, Rabbani faced more than 17 years in prison. In Evin prison, Rabbani made her body a form of protest, despite suffering from nerve disorders and asthma. She engaged in hunger strikes demanding dignity. In 2026, her protest took an extremely dangerous twist as she was beaten for failing to accept the mandatory hijab. In a symbolic protest against oppression, she crafted a bracelet using her own hair that had been forcefully torn off during interrogation. Her pleas for medical leave fell on deaf ears. particularly those of Judge Iman Afshari, as she prioritized public order above her health issues. Although released conditionally in April 2025, she was arrested again early in 2026 because she persisted in her activism. To the regime, she represents a threat to their security, while to the international community, she is the eye that will not shut, thereby proving that the truth cannot be whipped out of her. Niloufar Hamedi and Elahe Mohammadi. Niloufar Hamedi and Elahe Mohammadi have come to symbolize press freedom since the start of the Woman Life Freedom protest in 2022. In contrast to the Iranian government, they instilled fear to silence the majority. These journalists chose to speak out through their writing, thinking that the truth was a public good, even if it exposed the authorities. It all started with the tragic end of Mahsa Amini. Hamedi, a correspondent with Sharg, took a picture of Amini's parents hugging in a hospital in Tehran. Mohammadi, an author at Hamihan, documented the funeral in Sakes. The state deemed this news a conspiracy and detained both journalists in September 2022, confined in the high-security sections of Evin and Garchak prisons. The couple spent months in solitary confinement and endured harsh interrogations that sought a false confession of espionage crimes. Even with all the pressure, the couple refused to renounce themselves and were consequently convicted to serve 13 and 12-year sentences in a notoriously infamous hanging judge named Abolghasem Salavati, based on charges considered by the United Nations as outright fabrication for the purpose of silencing journalists. After spending 400 days in prison, they were conditionally released on bail in January 2024. Photographs showing them embracing each other without hijabs went viral as pictures symbolizing courage and defiance. While serving their jail terms after being apprehended, their courageous stance gained them recognition through the prestigious UNESCO/Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom Prize in 2023. Their story shows how a story is more powerful than even the most brutal regime can imprison. If you are watching this video, please subscribe our channel and hit the like button. Marzieh Hashemi. Marzieh Hashemi is a rare case of someone whose origins are Western, but whose ideological beliefs remain Eastern. She is one of the most influential ideologues of the Islamic Republic, who works as the leading anchor of Press TV, a mouthpiece of the state in English. Melanie Franklin was born in New Orleans. She joined her new home in Iran after being inspired by the revolution that took place in 1979. It marked the turning point in her life, as she perceived it to be liberation from the dominance of Western civilization. To her supporters, she reveals the hypocrisy of the West, while to her detractors, she remains an advanced propagandist of an unjust regime. In January 2019, Hashemi was held as a material witness for 10 days in the United States. Her case, including the reported stripping of her hijab, became a political firestorm in the context of the ongoing human rights debate. The Iranian government used Hashemi's detention as yet another accusation of the American government's human rights abuses, in line with common accusations against Iran's own prison authorities. Unlike local dissidents, Hashemi was supported as a victim by the government of her native country after her return to Tehran. The philosophy of Hashemi is that of total devotion to the principle of velayat-e-faqih. As a warrior for the media in a soft war, Hashemi always stands firmly behind the government and views the protests in her country as a result of interference by foreign intelligence services. Nowadays, Hashemi serves as a key figure in Iran's engagement abroad, providing the face of legitimacy in English to an all-encompassing dictatorship. Jimmy Lai. Jimmy Lai symbolizes the growth and destruction of Hong Kong's civil liberties. A self-made entrepreneur and founder of the Giordano clothing line, Lai turned to media work after the 1989 Tiananmen Square incident by creating Apple Daily to give a voice to pro-democracy activists. As a billionaire, Lai placed everything at stake for his belief that press freedom is key to economic success. From poverty to a tycoon, Lai's story started out as a tale of desperation when, at 12 years old, he fled from mainland China to Hong Kong aboard a fishing ship. However, his actions as a supporter of democracy cost him dear when, in 2020, after the introduction of the national security law, Lai was arrested amid a raid in his news office, accused of collusion with foreign forces and sedition. In the Stanley Prison Facility, the 78-year-old Lai has spent over 1,800 days in solitary confinement. Although struggling with health problems like diabetes and cardiac issues, he remained defiant in the face of danger. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison in February 2026, which is the longest sentence ever imposed under the national security law, thus guaranteeing him lifelong incarceration. This court hearing, with judges appointed specifically for the job and no jury, did not follow the regular legal process of Hong Kong. While his assets were confiscated and his newspaper company closed down, Lai did not run away but rather saw this as the pinnacle of his efforts. He now represents a worldwide image of the price paid for championing truth. José Rubén Zamora Marroquín. José Rubén Zamora Marroquín exemplifies the pinnacle of investigative journalism in Guatemala, which faces judicial warfare in an attempt to destroy it. Zamora fights in the judicial arena against a corrupt pact, where the courtroom becomes a place of execution of its members. An industrial engineer and businessman, he created El Periodico on the basis of his conviction that the only means of cleansing the corrupt democracy was journalistic revelations. For Zamora, journalism started from the constitutional crisis of 1993, known as the Serenazo. Due to censorship, he continued to publish papers where black blocs replaced censored articles. Journalism became his school of survival under constant kidnappings and death threats because of his uncovering of embezzlements and drug trafficking. However, the noose tightened on him in the aftermath of the 29th of July, 2022 article on corruption involving top officials. Zamora was arrested on suspicion of money laundering, while his journalists and defense lawyers ended up in jail. In May 2023, due to financial difficulties, El Periodico ceased to exist after 26 years. In Mariscal Zavala jail, Zamora was subjected to solitary confinement, medical negligence, and mental torment. Even though Zamora's 2023 verdict received an F grade for fairness from international observers and later annulled, the justice system resorted to a revolving door of new charges against Zamora, ensuring he would remain in custody. Although he was granted house arrest late in 2024, the appeals court rescinded the order in March 2025, putting Zamora back behind bars. Today, Zamora is hailed worldwide as an epitome of incorruptibility. Although Zamora's kidnappers call him a criminal, Zamora's life story is a testament to the influence of journalism and the realization that in places where corruption reigns supreme, the truth teller is deemed the outcast. Don Lemon. Lemon is a prime example of the polarized nature that has been adopted by many news anchors who now consider themselves to be commentators in their own right. While other news anchors were content to report what was going on without showing any bias, Lemon was not afraid to use his time in the spotlight to make a point about how the media had failed to properly perform its duties. Lemon began working with local television stations, but would later win the prestigious Edward R. Murrow Award for a news broadcast he did while working with NBC. Lemon would then find a home at CNN, where he hosted Don Lemon Tonight, a show that gave him the opportunity to openly speak his mind, including labeling the then-president a racist. A significant shift occurred in 2023 when Lemon was fired from CNN, following some controversies and internal struggles within CNN. Lemon did not waste time in embracing the digital revolution, but the collaboration with Elon Musk's platform X was soon dissolved following a contentious interview. Undaunted by these setbacks, Lemon created an independent web show known as The Don Lemon Show on YouTube, garnering over 1.25 million subscribers by the start of 2026. Don Lemon is a man of great resilience and adaptability. In spite of being charged federally with contempt in relation to his reporting about social unrest in 2026, Lemon utilized the controversy as a way of drawing attention to the weakening of the First Amendment rights.
And I will not be silenced. I look forward to my day in court.
Today, Lemon stands for the era of new media, in which the individual's personal brand can become bigger than the institution itself. Though labeled a provocateur, his supporters view him as a necessity in the divided world of today. In the volatile landscape of modern media, the pursuit of truth often comes with a staggering price tag. Whether facing sudden termination in a corporate boardroom or years of isolation in a high-security prison, these figures prove that words have the power to shift empires. Their stories serve as a haunting reminder that while platforms may change, the courage to speak remains the most dangerous tool in the world.